Hi students, welcome to the general feedback of your individual activity about e-commerce business models. First of all, we need to address why are business models important. We need to understand that a business model is a set of planned activities or business processes that are designed with the specific idea of generating profits for the marketplace. To have an effective business model, one needs to understand how the 8 key components help the firm to generate profit. And this is the most important part of the activity, I think, because based on this that is signaled in red, you will answer each of the 8 elements regarding the company that you selected. The first element that we're going to analyze is the value proposition. You read in the teacher's lecture that in general, this element answers to the question, why should the customer buy from you? But also we have to consider a bunch of other questions that will help you to define our value proposition. For example, what problem or desire of the client are you addressing with your with your with your product? After you identify what problem are you addressing, you need to think what solutions can you think to these problems or desires that the client has. Remember that when you have a problem, you can solve the problem in a variety of different ways. So it is very, very important for you to think of more than one solution for the problem, because then you will have to think if these solutions are worth spending some money. Some of they will, and some of they will not. But it is important to ask this question in order to start taking some solutions away and be left with only the best solutions. For this, we also have to think if the customer can solve the problem by himself, and if he or she can, would he or she rather pay you to solve the problem for him or for her? And if he will pay you, why would he pay you? I mean, if he has the ability to solve it by himself, why would he give you some money? So you will be left with a set of solutions in which you are sure that the client is going to pay you for that. So then you have to think, how can you transform your solution that survived to the previous questions into a good product or service? For example, can you think of more than one product or service for one particular solution? Example, if you want to capture moments, your solution might be a camera, but you can use a digital camera, or you can use an analog camera, or you can even use a video camera. So out of one solution, you can think of several products that can serve that solution. So you will have to decide which of these alternatives to the solution you will have to work with in order to come up with the best possible product. Also, you will have to, after developing or thinking about your product, you will have to ask yourself what makes your product or service unique, and what makes your product or service the best viable option for your market. Why don't they go with your competitors, or why would they choose you over your competitors? So in general, this is the value proposition, and is where you define what are the reasons why someone will give you money for whatever you're giving them in exchange. The second element regards the the way in which your company will generate profits, and it's called the revenue model. So if you want to generate profits, there are some very well-known forms in which you could do it. For example, big companies like Google or Facebook use ads in their programs. They make sure to give you a free service in which you are interested in using, and they create a big social network. After having a lot of public to which they can target information to, you can then select a series of ads of, for example, geographically specific ads in order for you to run it to generate revenues. For example, newspapers, they opt for subscriptions for their clients. They provide interesting content like the news, and the customers are willing to give some money for that subscription in order to get access to that information. We also have the transaction fees model. For example, when you want to make a deposit in a convenience store, you will normally be charged a fee. For these services to work, you need to provide an advantage over the existing service. For example, OXXO, which is a convenience store, they provide you a alternative to going to the bank. The real advantage that OXXO offers is that you can go even though if the bank has already closed, you can go with them and make a deposit up to, I think it's 8 p.m. in the night. And most of the banks close by 4 p.m. So this is their competitive advantage, so to speak, which is also another of the elements that we're going to review. For example, we have the sales revenue model. For example, Amazon uses this model. They offer the products directly to you, and they get their profits directly from selling you things. Also, we have the affiliate model. For example, Despegar.com is not an airline in particular, but it sells tickets for you to get a flight, and they charge a price to the company for the service. So additionally to this question, you will have to define who will you charge for your service. Will you charge your customers? Will you charge other businesses? Or what other way can you think in which you can generate profit for your company? Speaking of market opportunity, you have to answer the basic question, which is what market space do you intend to serve and what size is this market? And for this, you will need to recognize the actual and potential value of the market. For example, if your idea is an improvement of an existing product, this means that you will possibly find a market opportunity inside another market that already exists. So, how do you know that this is a market opportunity inside this already existing market? And how is this market opportunity? Uh, how can you be sure that this market opportunity is big enough? For example, here we have the example of WhatsApp. Is security an issue in WhatsApp? WhatsApp, remember that it's an app that already has its market very well established. So one of the problems that you might see with WhatsApp is concerned with security. So the next question would have to be, do lots of people have security issues with with the app? And finally, if I develop a more secure app than WhatsApp, would that convince enough people to download my app and start using it instead of using WhatsApp? For example, we have the case of an application called Telegram. Telegram is a much more secure application than WhatsApp is. But since the application launched, it has never got as many people as WhatsApp has got in its existence. So it is very important to address these questions if we really want to succeed in in our business model and in our market. The next factor is the competitive environment, and in short words, this means to know your competition. So you will have to be very aware of what is your direct and indirect competition. And within the direct competition, I think it is very easy because, for example, you could say I sell bread, so who else sells the same thing as I do? Who else sells bread? You can be a little bit more specific. For example, you could distinguish between sweet breads and salty breads. So if you sell a salty bread, you might also consider the sweet type of bread part of your direct competition. When we talk about the direct competition, we have two cases. The first one is who sells a similar product than you do. For example, if I sell bread, who else sells food? And this is any kind of food, because maybe a person would rather eat a piece of meat than eating bread, and he would rather spend his money in meat than doing it in bread. And also you will have to consider who sells different products that would make the people spend their money in those products rather than in your product. For example, we could talk about bread and weight loss programs. Weight loss programs by themselves are not food, but maybe people would rather pay a doctor to lose some weight and to do some more exercise rather than spend that same money in more food. So even though this is not the same type of product, it is affecting the amount of money that our market is spending in our product. So to define the environment of the competition, there are a variety of factors that we need to consider. For example, the number of competitors that you have in your market is very important. Also, the size of the competitors, it's not the same if I want to compete with Facebook in something regarding social media than competing with another small company that's starting along with me. Also, you have to take into account the competitor's market share, profitability, and pricing. This is very important because a big company, for example, might have much more flexibility in their pricing strategies than you do. For example, if you're selling tortillas, maybe it would be very, very difficult to compete with a big company like Maseca because Maseca can lower their prices and they can afford to lose some of their profits in order to bring you down. So this is very important to identify. Along with the competitive environment, we have the competitive advantage, and it's deeply related with the competitive environment, as I just said, and with the value proposition. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what special advantages does your firm bring to the market space? So in this, it would be very important to ask ourselves, what makes my product or service better than the product of the competition? So this might be maybe superior quality, lower price, maybe it's worldwide shipping, maybe it's a faster delivery, is a reduction in taxes. Maybe if your product comes from China, your client will have to pay a lot of taxes for your product. And maybe something that can give you a competitive advantage is if you patent your process. For example, if I were to sell a medicine, maybe having a patent would be a very good advantage because that would prevent any other else from marketing the same medicine. Also, it is very important to ask yourself if you're the first one to do this, because if you're the first one to do this, maybe your competition will be much less than if you are entering a market which is already saturated with competitors. We also have the market strategy, and this is basically how will you ensure that your products are promoted in order to attract more audience or more customers. So you need to have very clear how do you intend to enter your market and attract more customers. And it is important to know that a lot of companies create commercial and ads to attract people. And also some companies make sure to have a catchy logo or slogan or a song for you to be able to remember them. For example, in here we have some slogans like just do it, I'm loving it, and think different, which are very, very immediately related to their brands. Excuse me. So in this case, the idea is to create something that is easy for people to remember, so that when they think about the solution that you're providing, you will be the first one in their minds. So this is the whole point of marketing. And remember that marketing doesn't always involve making commercials. For example, Sarah, the clothing company, they never spend their money on TV commercials. All of their marketing strategy is on their reputation and on their stores. They have like big photographies with the models using the the clothing, but you will never find a TV commercial about Sarah because its CEO says that TV commercials are a pointless distraction. So this might be also something that you will have to consider when developing your market strategy. But the most important thing is how will you make sure that your product will get to your audience. After that, we have the organizational development, and this addresses the question of what types of organizational structures within the firm are necessary to carry out your business plan. So, what are the needs of your business plan? First of all, I think you will have to have this very clear if you want to develop organizational structures for you to comply with the business plan. Also, you will have to think which departments does my company needs to establish for my product to succeed. Also, we would have to know what know-how do I need? What people do I need? Maybe you will need to hire some people that have been trained specially or that have some special knowledge. You will also have to define what machinery will you need. Will you need, for example, lots of trucks? Would you need lots of machines that manufacture products? What kind of software do you need? Will you need, for example, a value chain administration software? Will you need information systems? Will you need inventory control software? What kind of software will you be using in your company? Sometimes your product might be a software by itself. For example, if you sell an app, we will most likely be working with software. Also, you will have to make sure how many shifts per day will you have to work. This is part of the organizational structure of your company. Also, you will have to define if your organizational structure within your company will need to have a lot of levels. Or if it will have a few levels. This is very important information for us to know and to have very clear when we are defining our product. And finally, we have our management team. Remember that our management team will guide your company and foresee difficult situations in order to act accordingly. They need to know their market and their expectations. They also have to create plans to meet those expectations and supervise the results to define how and when the work should be done. They also represent the firm and create confidence within your clients, your investors, and your suppliers. So having a management team that that ensures that all of this happens in the correct way will make it much more easy for your product to succeed. So after reviewing the 8 key elements, we can come to the conclusions of the activity. So the important thing is that there are more factors that determine the success or the failure of a company. The 8 elements that we just reviewed are essential to a firm, but are not the only elements of a business model. This is like the minimum requirements. At least it has to have these 8 elements, but it is not subject to these elements only. You can have some other elements that are important to your business model. So recognizing the 8 elements does not guarantee the firm's success, but it will certainly provide you with the tools to develop a more informed and fact-based decision. Also, remember that technology can always introduce whole new ways of doing business. For example, the internet has changed the way in which business is done in a lot of ways because this new technology has changed the way in which humans interact with each other. So this has created a lot of new opportunities for developing new markets. So you have to always be very attentive of the technology that is available for you to get the most out of it. So thank you very much for listening me and for listening the feedback of this activity. I hope that you got something out of it, and I hope that this serves you to have a better understanding of the topics that were discussed during your first week of the course. Thank you very much, and it was very nice having this conversation with you. Bye bye.